Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, welcome. We made it to Monday. Game day is coming to town this weekend. Everybody get excited about that. Today on the show, we're going to go back and look at Liberty one last time. We're also going to talk about game day and the post-game shenanigans that took place. And we'll talk a little bit about the lines against the spread. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm Stephen Willis. This is the POMcast. Before we get started, I want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. The number, 1-800-330-7461. Again, that number is 1-800-330-7461. What I was trying to do here is to give you guys a resource. We're 18 months into this at this point. So if you have a resource down here to understand what's going on, understand mask mandates, understand what businesses are doing, because everybody is in it for themselves and doing whatever whatever's going on. So it's important that you know that. Well, these guys will provide a resource to you. Give them a call. They can give you the same rate that you can get online. Plus, they can provide you a resource and let you know, hey, Disney requires masks indoors, or Universal doesn't require masks at all, and your vacation will be the best possible. So give them a call, 1-800-330-7461, travelandcruiseworld.com. See Central Florida like a local. If you look down below us, those are the major podcasts. You can search Positively Ole Miss. Just leave us a 5-star review if you would. You can say whatever you want to. Just leave us a 5-star review. Also, you can watch the show at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. You can search Positively Ole Miss on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, please, and also hit the bell. You'll know not only that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about, and we're on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. So thank you very much for tuning in. Ole Miss a 27-14 winner over Liberty. Now, the important thing to remember of this is, and you're going to hear a lot of doom and gloom about this game, and a lot of it just doesn't make sense and it isn't really worth your time. But this is the key number to remember, and that is 13-13. And that is 13-13 left in the second quarter. Ole Miss had scored more points than Liberty would score throughout the game. So they might talk over and over about hypotheticals and what could have happened. The fact of the matter is this game was over at 13-13 left to go in the second quarter. Period. It was 24-0 at halftime. Yes, Liberty scored a couple of touchdowns in the second half. They found out some stuff that was working in the run game. We'll get into that a little bit. The fact of the matter is, Ole Miss was so concerned about Malik Willis, they weren't really concerned about the running back. So you would be able to run. And I don't know his first name, but his last name was Lewis, a little quick guy. Managed to do some chunk plays from here and there. A couple of 20-yard runs. I think he scored a long touchdown. I mean, that's where their run game came from. I'm not overly concerned about what's going on. Sam Williams is leading the nation in sacks. And 3 interceptions by the defense was pretty much what we needed to do. So Ole Miss ended up turning them over, doing whatever they had to do. The defense won this game, period. The offense is banged up. Everybody knows about the injuries, and everybody knows where I stood. And the reason I wanted to sit Matt Corral on this weekend to go with all the wide receivers, including Braylon Sanders, who played this weekend, is because they would be a little bit better off this week. And this week is the one that really matters. This is the most important game of the year. And it's a game where Probably something like number 12 Ole Miss is going to play number 11 Texas A&M, and the winner is probably going to be in next week in the top 10. Now A&M, the line's moving up because A&M has a heck of a running game. They really do. A-Chain and Spiller, they are legit. Now, Ole Miss is going to come into this game a little bit different than they did the past ones. Ole Miss has struggled this year, and this is why the defense, I'm not overly concerned about the defense, because coming into this game, dual threat quarterbacks really tore up Ole Miss all year, period. That's just the way that it all worked out. Dual threat quarterbacks tore up Ole Miss. Malik Willis was sacked 9 times. He had 27 carries for like 72 yards. He threw the ball for 175 yards and had 3 interceptions. We did a good job. Now, by the time the game was over, did Liberty figure out a way to move the ball? Yes. They have good coaches. They have some good, decent players. The fact of the matter is the defense was not going to let Malik Willis beat them. Now, and Ole Miss isn't Georgia. Ole Miss isn't Alabama at this point. We're still recruiting to what we need to do. So we might choose to take away 1 or 2 things from an offense, but something is always going to be there for that offense. We just don't have the guys right now. It's all about recruiting. If you look at our signing class that's up right now, you can see and you can look at the DBs and defensive players that's on that list. And it's designed to make that defense a little bit better. And I expect you'll see the defense a little bit better each year, a little bit better. Now, it's important for Ole Miss to hit the transfer market really hard. Find them a Chance Campbell, find them an Otis Reese, find them a Jake Springer. They did that intentionally and just fit what they do. Now, that might be a kid that comes from the G5 like Jake Springer, who's the best player on our defense. It might be a linebacker at a bottom-tier team in a Power 5 conference like Chance Campbell. You just don't know. Everybody looks at this and it's like you get a transfer from somewhere, all of a sudden that team's past results are going to factor into how he performs. It just doesn't work that way. And you're going to hear narratives over and over again about there's only one type to play football. That's the fun thing with these narratives. Is all of these journalists and everybody they're lazy. They're absolutely lazy. And in doing so, they try to make one type of football, and you see it everywhere. That's the reason they have rankings and everything. They do analytics because they want one type of football. That way you can either be good or you can be bad, but there is no layers of gray in between, which there are absolutely layers of gray. And people don't understand this defense. They don't. And it's not because it's hard to learn. It's not because it's counterintuitive or anything like that. It's because it just actually takes a couple of beats to learn what is happening. That's all. But they don't want to do that. They don't have the time to do that. They have their normal lives. They have their kids. They have soccer practice. You hear them complain all the time about extra stuff that they're busy about of why they can't cover what they're doing over and over. I mean, it is what it is. But if you look at this defense, we found a defense that allows us to grab tweeners to play the positions that like Jake Springer and Tysheem Johnson play. Important positions. It's basically like 2 hybrid players. Everybody talks about the 4-2-5 or the 3-5. With that 5th defensive back, this is just 2 of them. But you have players like Jalen White that from Little Rock that is committed. He's a 3-star. He's a fairly low 3-star. But what he is, I think he's 6'3" tall. He's about 200 pounds, and he runs a 4.5 40. Now, that's an ultimate tweener. It's a guy that 10 years ago would not find a place on a college roster. But in modern football, there's a role for him at a place like Ole Miss that recruits 2 of those type players. So SEC football said A&M fan here scared of Ole Miss, that Ole Miss offense, the weakest position on the A&M defense is the secondary. Still young guys on the A&M secondary and need more game time. Yeah. A&M, one thing A&M has, though, is probably the second best defensive line in the SEC. Ole Miss has its work cut out for it when it comes to blocking those guys, because as we saw, the Ole Miss fans that watched the Liberty game, the defensive line can absolutely take over and just affect everything that's going on. So the first thing they have to do is protect a Matt Corral that can't run around because he's on 2 hobbled ankles. But then hopefully get some guys back so that that young secondary will come into play. But I'm genuinely worried about A&M's defensive line against Ole Miss's offensive line. That's probably the matchup of the game. And this weekend, I think we're going to try and hit the Junction blog up. They haven't said yes yet, but we're going to do our live stream preview on Thursday with the Junction blog guys. A little bit of Hammer and Hank coming in talking about A&M and what's going on. So that's something you can look forward to. A&M fan, Ole Miss fan, they do a good job. They also do the Biscuits and SEC stuff that you'll see on Friday night. So we'll do a preview of that. So it'll be an Ole Miss, Texas A&M Biscuits and SEC preview this week. So you might want to tune into that. So that's really all that has to do with the Liberty. Now, if you're looking for style points and everything that's going on, Ole Miss was up 24-0 at halftime. It doesn't matter that they won 27-14. The game was over. It is what it is. People need things to be critical about because grievance and critical is all they can do, because they need to find a way to criticize what's going on, because whenever they report it, it's going to be fear-based reporting. Okay, you won, but you wouldn't have beat this team. Well, that doesn't matter. You're not going to play those games. There's no games that look identical. It is what it is. But Ole Miss is 7-2. They've won 10 out of the last 13. All of the losses have been on the road. That's some important stats for this weekend. But game day is coming to campus. It's going to be a really big day. Everybody talked about Eli Manning Day with LSU coming to town. Well, this is going to be a big day with game day coming to town. They're going to partition off the Grove and do whatever they need to do. Probably some lessons that they learned in 2014, they're going to be actually used in 2021. So I'm interested about that. And I'm interested in the guest picker of the game, actually. I think Morgan Freeman should be the guest picker. He's obviously a season ticket holder for Ole Miss basketball, and with Ole Miss basketball tipping off this week, they have a game tomorrow night, and then a game on Friday. So, you can actually get to see the Rebs moving forward, and then have Morgan Freeman there. And it'd be great just to have the voice of God, basically, as the guest picker for this weekend. So that's what I'm rooting for, Morgan Freeman to be the guest picker. Anybody else is less than, honestly. Unless you get an outsider with ties to the university like Katy Perry last time. But I would do Morgan Freeman. I think he would do a heck of a job. But we'll see. He might be a guy that does basketball, doesn't know much about football, but somebody that watches that much basketball is obviously a sports guy, so I think he's probably at least paying attention to the game. Also, I want to see Tony the Land Shark get used as the mascot head. I'm excited about the potential of that, because I don't know if A&M has a mascot, but Tony the Land Shark being used as a mascot head would be pretty funny. But I'm interested to see what happens. Game day coming to the Grove this weekend. Okay. After the Liberty game, Ole Miss's special media team, they allegedly did some things. Now, I don't know if they were hacked. I don't know what was going on. They were deleting it, and they kind of let it go, and they kind of wanted it to die. And these are my thoughts. What probably happened in that game after that is there are some prominent money people that were really good friends with Hugh Freeze. Period. It was a way for them to worm in, get some access, have some influence, develop some power. Right? That's the way everything works. Those people have money. They have influence. Now they chose that to use it. Now, if they want to choose that, so be it. The other side of that is, in 2013, whenever Hugh Freeze sent the infamous tweet, that set Ole Miss. Ole Miss had about 2 years of goodness, but about 5 years of pain came from that decision. Over and over, the national media just chewing Ole Miss up and spitting it out. Every school in the SEC actively recruiting against Ole Miss because of horrible things. A 5-year investigation that allowed Ole Miss to be dragged through the mud with the national narrative and the recruiting. Everything's going on. It completely drug Ole Miss through the mud. And I think Hugh Freeze needs to take ownership of that, because what they tried to do is kind of change the narrative to where this wasn't their fault. Ole Miss was the problem. Hugh Freeze is a good guy. And there's several people that were friends with Hugh Freeze that are just trying to gaslight that a little bit. Even though the recruiting and everything's going on through that 5 years is 100% Hugh Freeze's fault. I will say that again. It is 100% Hugh Freeze's fault. Now, like I said, he had friends and they're trying to gaslight and do whatever they're doing. But that tweet caused 5 years of fairly intense harm to the football program. Ole Miss has an issue selling out right now. And you'll see this week of them trying to pump it up to get people in the stadium. Because of 5 years of selling out and just absolute, just downward spiral with attendance and interest is because of that NCAA investigation and how it was handled. And because Ole Miss got dragged through the mud. And because everybody recruited against Ole Miss. The 2019 Mississippi Made class that Matt Luke was trying to do, and they kind of built a superpower group to try and recruit Mississippi that year, is because of all of this. And it was also to save Matt's job. Same people probably that were good friends with Hugh Freeze that wanted those tweets to be taken down are the same people that got Matt Leak the job whenever he was hired in 2017 or 2018. It is what it is. So, what people need to realize is they don't necessarily care that you're friends with anybody. They don't care about your personal relationship with anybody. They don't care about how it looks to anybody. All they care about is the thing they love, in most cases, more than anything, as far as sports relations is concerned, got harmed for 5 years. And they had to go through that for 5 years. And there's going to be a segment of this fan base that is going to put that 5 years on everybody that was in this admin that let it happen. That's Hugh Freeze. That's Ross Bjork. That's Michael Thompson. The whole 9 yards based off of that 5-year period. It honestly didn't change. It didn't even change when Lane Kiffin got hired. It didn't get changed until Ole Miss started winning games last year in football. That's when it started to turn around. It was even down going into this season. Like I said, you can see they're still trying to get people in the stadium. But they're battered. They're beaten. They're just beaten down. And it's just going to take a little bit of time to get them going. It's not that it won't happen. It's just that 5-year period almost destroyed our program, which was the point, which is why a rival writer was producing all kinds of information about what was going on. That was why Tom Mars got involved. That the whole 9 yards was about bringing Ole Miss down and bringing it down to the point where it could never happen again. Fast forward 5 years is terrible. They hire Lane Kiffin. In year 7, from the last time Ole Miss hosted Gameday, they hosted again. Everything that was done to Ole Miss was for nothing. Completely wasted effort. It was all nothing. It was worthless. 7 years later, let's see, we found out about the notice of allegations on 2016 in like 3 days before signing day. So somewhere around February 1st. Five and a half years later, nothing. Ole Miss is right back where it was. Now, we can look over and over and over again at how that happened. What went down, the hires that were made. The most important hire, or the most important decision that was made, was Ross Bjork leaving. Because as we get some distance behind what happened, we can see a little bit more clearly the weakness of Jeffrey Vitter, the poorness of leadership of Ross Bjork, and kind of Hugh Freeze wanting to play fast and loose with the rules. That combination resulted in that 5-year period. But this weekend should be a celebration of that being over. It should be an excel by the Ole Miss fan base. It should absolutely be a sellout. Former players should come back. Everything that needs to happen like that should happen. There's no excuse for it not to be sold out. It's a night game. I imagine it's going to be Fowler and Herb Street. And the stage is just set for, fantastic things to happen. If you remember Fowler and Herb Street, they called the 2015 Alabama game with the crazy play. So the stars are aligning for things to really start working out for Ole Miss in regards to this. I'm not saying that Ole Miss has arrived, and I'm not saying Ole Miss wants to take a step back next year, because they probably will. Although I still think Luke Altmaier's a hell of a quarterback, and I'm not sure a transfer is going to be playing quarterback for Ole Miss next year, but we'll see. Stars are aligning for Arch Manning. His other favorites, Texas. They're doing a 4 or 5 game losing streak. They have Kansas this weekend. The potential for disaster is there. The confidence is just dropping, which means Texas rumblings, as quick as they are going to start talking about replacing Sark and how it was a mistake. It is what it is. But that is the competition. By the time he commits, it'll be probably an Ole Miss Georgia competition, because Texas is going to play their way out of it. It just is. They're going to be self-destructive, because they are always self-destructive. Since they won the national championship, they've been self-destructive, unbelievably self-destructive since then, because of a sense of entitlement and a sense of arrival. That's the thing. If you think you're there, you're not. It is what it is. All right. Let's do a little Week 11 lines. Got Auburn and Mississippi State. Auburn opened at -4. There's up to Auburn -4.5. Games at Auburn. We know Jordan Hare has a little bit of magic going on from time to time. And, like I said, it is what it is. And I'm expecting, Auburn voodoo is a thing. It just is. We saw that the other night. Auburn voodoo is the thing. State's going to struggle in that game. They have a chance to go 5-5, which means against Tennessee State, they'll be playing for bowl eligibility. I don't know if they'll be able to count that. I think they'll be able to count that win as happening, and then the Egg Bowl will happen. So Mississippi State, a good team, a well-coached team. They're probably going to go 6-6, 6-6 as the season closes out. South Carolina is favored by 1.5 over Mizzou. Mizzou opened at a 3-point favorite. Opened as a 3-point favorite. The game's at Mizzou. South Carolina is getting a lot of credit over their win over Florida over the weekend, which they deserve credit, but that may be more of a Florida issue than a South Carolina issue. But congratulations to the Gamecocks. Kentucky's favored by 21 over Vanderbilt. It opened at 19. The game's at Vandy. A&M's favored by 2.5 over Ole Miss. It opened at 1. Like I said, this game, we're going to talk about it all week, what's going on, but the matchup will be can Ole Miss's offensive line prove up to the task? Because they're playing the second best defensive line and the best they're going to see. If they can neutralize that offensive line a little bit and give Corral room to throw, A&M's secondary can be gotten, as Mississippi State proved. So I'm curious to see if Dontario comes back. Curious to see how Braylon is. We'll see what's going on, but it was a big, big weekend. The Ole Miss Liberty game. John Rice Plumlee and Dennis Jackson going over 100 yards receiving. That is unbelievable. Unbelievably big. Yeah, Guy, as much as I would say it, it makes sense that would happen because Chris Cutcliffe is the coach over at Oxford High School. And, having a Manning sitting in that analyst room would be a big get for that family because we all know how the Manning family feels about David Cutcliffe. And as somebody that worked for David Cutcliffe, yeah, I see it. I would run through a brick wall for David Cutcliffe. But Duke is probably going to move on after this year. So I think that is a chance. But also know that everybody's going to line up for the analyst play. But the Chris Cutcliffe thing, that is something to keep an eye on. Georgia's favored by 20.5. It opened at 22, so Tennessee's making some noise. Remember, Tennessee, right now, with Matt Corral injured and everything, Hendon Hooker is the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Just what it is. I'll say it again. Right now, with the way everybody's playing and Matt Corral being hurt, Hendon Hooker is the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Tennessee possesses all of the things that give Kirby Smart defenses trouble. It's a game. I'm not calling a Tennessee win, and I will not call a Tennessee win. I think Georgia's going to win, and I'm probably going to lay the points. I'm just saying this is a game where the odds, if it was a 5% chance of Tennessee winning, it's actually probably closer to 15 because Tennessee has all of those ingredients. They just won a game in Kentucky to where they had the ball 14 minutes of time and possession. Kentucky had the ball for 46 minutes. Tennessee scored 45 points. They're explosive. They are really explosive. And Tennessee is going to use the jet sweep game to get that defensive line for Georgia running a little bit so they can get gassed. And once they get gassed, explosives are going to open up. Ole Miss is going to try to do the same thing to A&M, by the way. You're going to see the jet game. If anybody wants to see John Rice Plumlee running the jet sweep, here it is. Because this is the game that's going to happen. Because you want those guys running side to side, and you want to get Leal and those guys off the field for whatever it takes. Because they've recruited some great ones on defensive line. Also, Arkansas favored by 2 at LSU. It started Arkansas -3. But it's down to -2. Arkansas had a nice win this weekend against Mississippi State. LSU is going to go through. This is where they're going to go into the tank. They wanted to stand up for Alabama one time. Really get up for Alabama. But this is the type of game that they're going to struggle with. And I kind of see Arkansas win this by 2 or 3 touchdowns, honestly. And Alabama is favored by 52. It opened at 50 over New Mexico State. The game is at Alabama. And honestly, at this point, I would lay the points because after the egg they laid against LSU, I expect them to come out and score and do whatever they need to do to get it done. It is what it is. So, Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. It's right at 11:30. Thank you very much. I'm going to finish Yellowstone because I did not watch it last night, and I'm in episode 2. It is pretty good. So everybody enjoy this week. Have fun. Game day coming to town. If you can get to Oxford, get to Oxford. I was there in 2014. It was a party. It was one of those days that I was so happy I was there. And there's just a chance to do really cool things. But anyway, until tomorrow, I'm Stephen Willis. This has been the POMcast. Tune in, and we're going to record all kinds of stuff. No Beast of the East tonight. I've got a comedy show to go to. One of my friends is doing a late night comedy thing, so I will not be here. So we'll see what's up. So, guys, thank you for joining the chat today. We'll see you tomorrow. And everybody have a good day. Hotty toddy.